Now I'd like to introduce our speakers. Tonight we have Denise Godfrey, an experienced foster parent. She has fostered for 15 years and has worked with children from newborn to age 18. We'll also be talking with Amire Harvin. Amire entered foster care at age 15 and aged out at age 21 years old when she was in college. She currently works for the Department of Juvenile Justice as a juvenile probation officer. We are going to start this evening with Ms. Godfrey. Ms. Godfrey, if you would, please share your story about your experience with the foster care system.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Denise Godfrey. I've been a foster parent 15 years, 4 years with Lutheran. And I haven't had a bad experience, had a great experience as far as being a role model for the children, giving back what I was given, which is stability and structure, and just a loving home and giving the kids the environment that I grew up in.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask you a few questions and then we'll see if we have some questions from our audience. Okay? Is there anything you've learned about yourself through your experience with the system?
Yes. You'll be surprised how much you can tolerate and how much, it changes you because you have your mindset as far as you being a parent to your own children versus taking to someone else's children. The values are different. The structure is totally different. And it makes you appreciate what you have and what you were given as a child growing up.
What has been one of the biggest challenges for you?
Seeing the challenges that the children have gone through, that they didn't ask to go through, that they were put into, and trying to help them with you unknowing that and not having that experience in that area of life, is trying to help them maneuver through life to get them where they can be stable and have a productive life, giving them the foundation they need, to be productive.
And the next question is probably part of what you just answered with, but what's been one of the biggest rewards for you?
Seeing the kids achieve, knowing that I was a part of that achievement, whether it was big or small, it was still an achievement. And it gave them that kind of, exhale of knowing, I could have did this all along. And thank you for the guidance that you gave me to help me get to where I am now. And then to just see them flourish.
What do you think the media gets wrong about the foster care system?
It's very challenging, which it is, because like I said, we haven't had those experiences that the children have had. But everybody's looking for somebody to give them a helping hand or step up. That's all they need, is to know that somebody cares. And with the media, it's like everything is going to be blurred, like black and white. Everything is not always black and white. There is some color in between. You just have to get to the color. And that may not be overnight, but you can get to it.
Respite is a break that we give foster families and kids in care where the child goes to stay with another family for a period of time. Can you share about how you've used respite while taking care of kids, if you've used respite?
I myself limit myself to using respite. I like to have the kids one-on-one with the kids myself. I'd rather for them to be with me than to be with someone else, if I can say that like that. Because, I like to keep everybody to myself anyway. But respite is good if you need that break, because a lot of people do need a break. And it's not bad. And as far as respite, what we do is things that, it's more to me like recreation for the child as well as the parent. Everybody needs to get their break from each other, because we're right there 24/7 with each other all the time. So everybody does need that little break. It's not a bad break. It's not saying somebody did something wrong or anything like that. It's just that exhaling. With somebody else. And then what the kids find out is all of us are on the same page. We're all on the same page. We just want you, just do, what's the word I'm looking for? Just to flourish. You know, it's okay. It's okay.
Sometimes it's good to take a step back and
reevaluate everything.
There you go. Okay. From your experience, can you tell me if you've had any damage done to your home when a child has been there, and if you received any compensation from insurance, the guardian, or the agency who licensed your home?
Yes, I have had damages done to my home. And what I do is I have my own homeowner's insurance, and that sometimes will kick in and cover, but if it doesn't, I do it on my own. And no, I haven't had any compensation from like Department of Social Services or anything when a child has done damage in my home. Don't always get that.
Okay. Can you share some of the experiences that you've had with financial assistance for your children regarding their needs in education?
Yes, that's been very good. They do have a stipend they get every month, and I use that stipend towards the things that they need as far as education, and it's allotted for, you know, things in that area. And then what they don't have, I implement and give it to them myself. But the agencies do look out for the children as far as helping us. If we can't find the resources, they help us find resources.
Have most of the children in your home had Medicaid?
Yes.
So they do have the health insurance
They
piece.
do have the health insurance piece.
Are you able to take your children on any family trips with you if you do any traveling?
Yes. I've always taken my children with me wherever I went.
And I'm going to answer this next question. It was one that was submitted with registration regarding adoption fees, and if there are any adoption fees. There are no fees for a child that is adopted through the foster care system in Virginia. There are fees, however, for adopting a child from another state, and those fees vary by state. If someone were to adopt a child from a private adoption agency, there would be fees for those adoptions also, whether they are in Virginia or in another state. Therefore, it's always a good idea to speak with agencies directly before you even begin with the process, to talk about their policy and any fees that they charge if you're looking toward adoption.
We've had some questions come in, but for anybody that joined late, I just want to remind you that we do have a Q&A box at the bottom. If you want to ask any questions, please feel free to add that, and I'll make sure to ask those questions. Ms. Godfrey, can you tell me about how you've developed relationships with birth families for any of the kids that have lived with you?
My relationship with them is at a minimum, but we do have a good relationship. And actually, with some of my older clients, I've actually kept in touch with them. They let me know how the children are doing and how they're doing. I don't overstep my boundaries because they are the parent, so I give them that respect. And it seems to be okay with dealing with the biological parents. You just don't overstep boundaries because you have your set of what you have to do, and you still remember that they're the parent and they want you to know they're the parent.
Okay, great, thank you. Can you talk about what it's been like for you to have kids return home to their birth parents?
Well, with some, even though I've been doing it for a while, it's still hard to let go because I have a tendency to get attached, and sometimes I can admit overly attached. But the thing is, they still keep in touch. And even like on the holidays or whatever, I have some that still call me to see how I'm doing and let me know how they're doing. So it works out well for me.
Okay, great. Do you have any advice that you can give to folks who are thinking about becoming foster or adoptive parents?
I would say that it's rewarding, and it's a good thing because like I said, everybody needs somebody, and just giving a child that opportunity and that chance and that thing of knowing that there's somebody who cares about me. Of course, we all want our parents to care about us, but in certain situations, you know, they don't have that. or they're limited to that, but just to know somebody else care and is willing to go that extra mile with them to help them get where they need to get to, or just knowing that somebody love them and care about them. And there's always some open arms out there that's willing to reach out and help and touch them any way they can.
Okay. And then my last question is, what is it that you wish people understood about kids that are in care?
They just need love. They're looking for love. We find a lot of kids looking for love in all the wrong places. But we as positive people, and we with the empathetic hearts and mindsets and all of that, we can give them that.
Okay.
To me, it's a lifetime investment. You're investing in somebody else. And then you've had people in your life that have invested in you also, because we all didn't get here by ourselves. So that's a big plus.
Yeah, that's definitely
Being a part of the village. I call it a village. Yeah.
okay. And then we do have one more question for you. Have you ever adopted a foster child, and how long does that take?
I've never adopted one, but you would think I have. But no, I've never did that. Like I said, I'm overly attached. But we're still close, but I never have. Especially when it came to the infants. That was the hardest.
Ms. Godfrey, do you know how many kids that you fostered over the years?
I really don't. It's been a lot. At first I was trying to keep up, but then it was just, but I have had long-term children.
Okay. What's the shortest amount of time that you fostered a child?
I think it was like it wasn't less than 2 years, about 2 to 3 years.
Oh, that's the longest time that you fostered?
No, I fostered one of my older ones. It was like, she was 13 when she came into care, and she left when she was 21.
Oh, gotcha. So 2 to 3 years was the shortest time. Okay.
Right.
Gotcha. Wow. And so about 7 years was the longest.
Right.
Okay. Laura, would you like to answer the question about how long an adoption might take?
That can be a very difficult question to answer. If it is a child that is adopted through the foster care system and they do not have parental rights terminated, then it can take a couple of years at least for that to start and finish, because there's a longer court process that has to happen if parental rights are not terminated at that point. If it is a family that is just seeking adoption and starts out knowing that they don't want to foster, that can still take a while. There's a matching process that you need to go through after training. The DSS workers, who are the Department of Social Services, as well as the agency that performs the homesteading in the family, want to make sure that that match is really a good match. So they're going to be looking at not just a family that wants to adopt a child and wants to adopt any child, but what are some of the interests that are the same for the child and the family? If the child needs medical care or more supports in the educational system, what type of home would they be going into? Where are there supports for that in the community? So we say the shortest amount could be within a year, but sometimes it even takes 2 to 3 years with the matching process and to make sure that it's a good fit, because you don't want a child to come to your home and find out that it's not a good match, and then they have to leave and go back into foster care. They've already experienced enough trauma without having to do that. So it doesn't completely answer the question, but hopefully it helps.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. It's complex. And just to clarify, a termination of parental rights is something that has to happen before an adoption can happen. And some parents do this voluntarily, and some parents have to go and do it through the court process where the court removes that parent's rights. And so sometimes that can take quite a while to go through the court system. So thank you, Ms. Godfrey. That's all the questions that I have for you so far, but I will chime in later if more questions come in.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you very much, Ms. Godfrey. Amir, we're going to move along to you now. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience with the foster care system?
Sure. My name is Amire Harvin. I went into foster care at age 15 and I aged out at 21 while I was in college. While in the foster care system, I had 7 different placements. One being a community-based group home, another being Tidewater Juvenile Detention Center, and the other ones were just regular therapeutic foster care homes. At the group, I would say the group home probably was the most challenging because it was a combination of youth that were placed there for court reasons and youth that were placed there for placement reasons. So they were blended all together. It usually was a 90-day program. I actually went through the program twice. The reason for it was teenagers are difficult to place. Unfortunately, that is true sometimes. I went away to college. My plan was to move out of Virginia, just go as far as I can, just to start over. And so I went to North Carolina. I went to the first school that accepted me, and I aged out at that school, completed it in 4 years, and here I am.
Well, good for you with sticking it with that, right? So when you look back on your experiences, has there been anything you've learned about yourself?
Yes, a whole lot.
Yeah.
Have learned the actual power of everything that I've gone through, how it can impact others. I've learned that I love love. Like, at first I thought I didn't like kids, but I actually love kids. Go figure. Every job that I've had has involved kids. I never would have thought that. But, and something that I learned about myself, I consider myself a change agent. I can take my experience in foster care and I can feed into the negative side of it. It wasn't always roses, or I can look at the other side of it. There was a lot of good that came from it. So with that ability, I just choose to lean more on the positive side to kind of change the narrative of what a lot of people hear, basically.
And we're really grateful too that you're willing to talk about your experiences with people.
Oh, no problem.
Can you talk about where you might have struggled the most when you were in care?
I would have to say accepting my truth. Looking at the situation that I was in, my mother passing away when I was 1. So there was a lot of things that I naturally blocked out, and I created this story or this image of what my life was. So as I got older, it was like, girl, snap out of it. That is not true. This is how it is. So actually accepting that, and once I accepted it, that's when I could maneuver through the healing process, because nothing can change until you actually accept it and you move forward.
Was there anything that you struggled with after you left care?
Yes. After I left care, well, when I went away to school, I took everything that I owned. So pretty much it was putting me kind of in a homeless state, but actually not in a homeless state because I resided in the dorm, which of course, going on breaks and things like that, that was a whole nother story. But so the things that I struggled with the most was that independence. My social worker, she believed that it was best for me to be in a family environment, and that's how I would be able to focus on school. However, I lacked that independence part. So when I got to college, it was kind of like, what? A bank account? Credit? Nobody told me about this. Probably would have did some things differently. Just learning to balance things like, okay, you have this you have this money, you need to do this, you need to do that, but still at the same time thinking about the future. Like when you turn 21, you're not going to have a place to stay, So unfortunately, I did experience the homeless piece just very briefly, where I actually stayed in my car for about a week. And I kind of got creative and used things like, oh, I have a gym membership, so I'll stay in my car, I'll go shower at the gym, and then work it out. Though I did have a job at the time, but it was a matter of that transition piece. So learning how to transition to the next phase or step in life without that lapse. Like, okay, everything just fell down. Where do I go from here? Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to people thinking about becoming foster parents?
I would say don't take everything personal. A lot of times it has nothing to do with the foster parent. I would also say one of the things I utilize when I'm working with youth and juvenile justice, if my main focus is to plant the seed, no matter if I see it blossom, because I might not. As long as I'm giving 100% and I have given my all, it may blossom at a later time. So just maintaining that hope. And also I would say, unfortunately, sometimes it does not work out and a child is moved. But I like to look at it as you're just a piece of their puzzle. So you may have only been assigned to their life for a short period of time, but it's still impactful because everybody that puts a puzzle together, if you're missing pieces, the picture will never be complete. So just give it your all in the time that you have them. That's what I would say.
When you were in care, did you take any family trips with any of the families you were with, and what was that like for you?
When I was in care, I took one trip. We went to New York. And well, during that time, it's a little bit different from now because that was like ages ago. But back then, they were very strict on where you're going, when you're going. It had to be approved. So there was a very tedious process. So I couldn't go on the spontaneous, let's drive to Atlanta, out of the blue, especially if it's like on a Saturday or something in the summer, because my foster parent had to talk to the social worker and get approval to do all of that. It's changed a little bit now. So I didn't go on a lot of family trips. I think that one was probably the only one that I went on, and that was because it was planned, I want to say, months in advance. Like soon as I arrived there, my foster parent was like, okay, we're going to New York, and she gave her all the information, so I was able to go. So unfortunately, no, but we traveled around Virginia a lot.
Well, that's good. That's good. And you're right, it has changed. You can take children on trips now without having to get all that information ahead of time and the permissions. We usually do try to get a little information about where a family's going so that we can at least tell the legal guardian, but we don't need that permission anymore. So it does make it a little easier for families to take kids different places.
Yeah, I think when I actually was in care, it was probably they were transitioning into that, and we're trying to make the child feel normal. Or
right.
Like
normalcy, yes.
Yeah, but it was just like, I want to go over my friend's house and spend the night. But then it's like, well, they got to go through a background check. Like, okay, never mind, just forget it. So I'm glad that it actually has changed.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I've got a few more questions for you, Amire. Can you talk a little bit about the relationship that you had with your birth family while you were in care, and what was that like not being with them?
Okay. Well, like I stated, my mother passed away when I was 1, so I was reared or brought up to the age of 15 by my grandparents. But when I was born, my grandparents were already over the age of 60. So when you really think about that, by the time I was 10, they couldn't keep up. And back then, 60 was really 60. 60 wasn't 30. So they were elderly. By the time I actually got into care, my grandfather had passed away, but my grandmother, she didn't really remember me or anything like that. I have siblings on my mom's side. In that transition, I was kind of lost as far as the social worker actually identifying the family members and getting approval for like my sister to come to the group home to pick me up or things like that. So it took time. I couldn't stay with them. My sister was 18, so it was too young. And so I kept in contact with her, and as I moved around, we stayed in contact. My brother's not too much. My father, not really, but that was his choice. So, but my foster parents or my social worker never discouraged me from actually engaging with my biological family. It was a matter of actually understanding that, hey, you just can't stay with them. We're not saying you can't talk to them or have a relationship with them, which I'm grateful for, because I probably would have not gone to college if I was with my biological family. I probably wouldn't have done half of the stuff that I've done. So.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask you a similar question that I asked Ms. Godfrey, but what is it that you wish people understood about kids in care that maybe they don't?
I would say that a lot of people look at kids in care coming with a lot of baggage or maybe damaged, but I don't believe that there's a bad kid, and I don't believe that a kid is damaged beyond repair. I think that love, as Ms. Godfrey said, every child wants to be loved, whether they reject it or not, they still want to be loved. So with that being said, love kind of soothes a lot of those wounds. It doesn't necessarily heal it right away, but that's when the consistency comes in. A lot of times in care, unfortunately, it might not be a stable environment. So it's like, oh, you say you love me, but then I'm gone a month later. So that consistency, like, hey, yeah, you messed up, you did something wrong, but I still love you anyways. And then that also kind of it helps them see that they're like your own, because when your own child messes up, it's not, oh, let me call your social worker, you gotta go, or things like that. So just every kid wants to be loved, and it's not everything that you see on TV. Goodness. Some of the movies are good, but it's like, it can portray foster care youth as like, oh, little charity cases, and that's not necessarily the case. It's not the case at all, but yeah, it's not what you see on TV.
Okay, thank you. And I do have a follow-up question about respite. When you were living with families, were you ever put in respite, and what was that like?
I was. Unfortunately, my foster parent was not like Miss Godfrey. I went to respite. Respite was a form of punishment. Basically, you're not behaving or you're not doing what you're supposed to do in the house. So I'm going to send you away so you can get it together and then come back. Even though I know that wasn't the purpose, it came off as punishment. Like, oh, you're tired of me, go here, I need a break. And then when I came back, it was like, so I actually went to respite 3 or 4 times. I think at least twice my foster family actually, during that time, went to do something fun. Like one time they went to like King's Dominion or something while I was in respite. But I think for the respite parents, it's not fair for the children that are sent there during those times, because it opens them up to receiving that anger and they have nothing to do with it. I wasn't a breaker of anything. So I didn't break or throw anything or anything like that, but basically sending someone away and, okay, so you're going to get the shutdown version of me. I don't really have nothing to say because I'm on punishment right now. But times have changed. We actually use respite here in Hampton. Surprisingly, our respite program in Hampton, you don't have to be in foster care. You can be a regular child experiencing challenges in the home, and we will send a child to respite to get a break. Well, to give the parents a break and the child a break. So.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I do have one more question, but I think this might be good for Laura, which is, do you have to foster a child before adopting? And maybe it'd be useful to talk about private versus foster care adoption.
Right. You do not, if you're adopting a child out of the foster care system, you are generally fostering before you're adopting. And that be, and there are agencies that do that are private agencies that are foster care agencies, but they also end up having children that are in their care that become available for adoption. So often families do foster initially. The Departments of Social Services like to have a lot of their families foster, but they do see a lot of the much younger children in their care. So often those children become available for adoption sooner. So a family might foster them for a short period of time and then end up adopting them if the family's rights are terminated, like we talked about earlier. There are other private adoption agencies that do strictly adoption. They do not have anything to do with foster care. Those agencies generally have fees for their adoptions, but you don't have to worry about the foster piece if you're thinking that you just want to adopt and not foster. And I know some families worry about getting too attached to a foster child and wishing that they could adopt them. So some look to do strictly adoption.
That's great. Thank you, Laura. So that's it for our questions. If there are any other final questions, please make sure you put that in the Q&A box at the bottom. But other than that, I think we're going to wrap up. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Lauren.
Okay. So first of all, Denise and Amire, thank you very much for joining us this evening and answering all of our questions. We'd like to invite those of you that are participating tonight to attend our additional events that we'll be having between now and June 16th. On June 16th, we'll be hosting multiple foster care and adoption agencies so that you can connect with a local agency. As a reminder, we'll be sending you a survey about this event, and we'll send you a $10 e-gift card from Amazon for completing the survey. I'd like to thank you for attending our first event in our foster care and adoption virtual information series, and we hope you have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.